My thesis was about oxidized LDL and extracellular cathepsin B as potential new therapeutic targets for non-alcoholic steatohepatitis-induced hepatocellular carcinoma. We discovered that using an immunization strategy against oxidized LDL and non-alcoholic steatohepatitis-induced hepatocellular carcinoma, tumor burden was decreased.
Broadly speaking, my thesis is about predicting which activities a person is performing based on various streams of input data. The thesis focuses on multimodal recognition, which simply means that you have access to multiple different streams of input data, such as sensor data from a smartwatch and video data from a video camera, and you can combine this information in order to make a better prediction.
My thesis is about the impact of neuroticism on counterproductive work behaviors following voicemail endorsement. So I studied how employees' neuroticism affects their emotional and behavioral responses when their voice is not endorsed. So that is when their proposed ideas, suggestions, or concerns are rejected and not supported or implemented within the organization.
During my master thesis, I did some research about the treatment of breast cancer patients, more specifically, if axillary radiotherapy could be safely omitted in people with limited lymph node metastasis undergoing breast conserving therapy. In addition to that, we also looked at the gene expression profiles in those patients and made a publication of that.
For my thesis, I looked at the COVID-19-induced financial crisis of early 2020, assessing how Twitter sentiment and economic uncertainty caused the crash. I discovered that you can divide the initial crash and later recovery into phases, where the first phase was a bit driven by Twitter sentiment, while later on was almost panic. Then for the recovery, we can see that there was an initial correction driven also by sentiment, while later stock market growth was neither driven by sentiment nor uncertainty, which suggests that later recovery was more driven by corporate investors.
My thesis is called The Sound of Syria, enacting homeland through diasporic music making. And I investigated in what way Syria is constructed or done in diasporic music making of Syrians. And for doing so, I did multi-sided fieldwork in the Netherlands over the months of February to May this year.
My thesis was about the protection of employees who blow the whistle on the wrongdoings of their employer. So if an employer does something ethically not entirely correct or just wrong, and an employee blows the whistle on the employer, so goes to the police or tells his friends, his family, and the employer then fires him or harasses him in any other way, the employee needs to be protected. And my question was if that protection is needed and if that protection is given by law at this moment.
My thesis was about integrating network medicine and drug repurposing in the field of pediatrics. I studied different organic osteodymias, which are rare inherited metabolic disorders, and there's a lack of treatment options, which arises due to the fact that we do not fully understand its pathomechanism yet. So this research was the first identification of a disease module in organic osteodymias based on graph theory algorithms.
So for my thesis, I studied social discrimination in algorithm, and what I did is that I focused on an algorithm that was used to produce grades for students because exams were cancelled in England. And to do that, I mapped all the actors around the algorithm to show that the discrimination that the algorithm produced were in fact issued from the social environment rather than from the algorithm itself.